What's up, what's up, what's up? So, it is the new year. Um, I completely neglected this channel, and I'm sorry about that. I really didn't expect to have such difficulty with what should be the easiest channel because I've got the most hobbies out of pretty much anyone in the world. So you know what? I'm coming up with new ideas for this year. I'm already coming up with thumbnails for future videos. There's a lot of good videos that you will be seeing in the weeks to come on this channel, God willing, Lord willing. So that is the plan. We've got a few videos lined up, like I did last year. I'm going to be doing basically overviews of my favorite books and movies from this year or from last year, which is 2021. Today is January the 8th of 2022. I'm recording this at 11:44 p.m. I don't know. I just like to say the dates while I'm recording, so I have it for future reference or whatever. I set my goal for the past 2 years in Goodreads to 35 books. I did not make it this year. I got the closest ever, though, to that amount. I actually had 27 books read this year. I'm shooting for the stars, and I'm going for 40 because here's the thing. Guys, 35 I was almost able to do. Like, not joking. If I had just really buckled down for the first few months or summer months, I would have really, or if I had listened to audiobooks while I was gardening, I would have been able to hit this goal. So I'm going for 40 because why the hell not? I almost hit 35 this year, and I know that I'm going to hit 35 this year, so why not do 40? So, we're doing the books first, in terms of reviewing my favorites from this year. How I do it is, I do my top 5 books and then my top 16 movies. So this video is the top 5 books that I read in the year 2021. Now I'm going to give you my stats first, my Goodreads stats first, so you guys have an idea of what I read and how much I read and everything. So I'm going to give you my Goodreads stats first, end of the year stats. I read 27 books. Also, if I sound nasally, sorry, I can't help it. I'm getting over this cold. Everybody in my area is sick. Okay. So yeah, everybody's getting sick. There's no cough drops at the store. There's no cough medicine at the store. I know everybody's getting sick. So yeah, I'm gonna get over this. My fever broke days ago. I'm able to breathe. I'm fine, guys. I'm alive, okay? It's just, I sound nasally, and it's annoying to me, too. So, you can get over it. I listen to myself talk every day, so you can get over it. Anyway, just wanted to put that out there. 27 books read, 9,216 pages read, which I read mostly audiobooks, so that's not even really relevant. The shortest book I read was 70 pages. The longest book I read was 837. My average book length in 2021 was 341 pages. The most popular book I read this year was 1984. The least popular book I read this year was an Audible original called Tribulation, which I thought was amazing. Only 171 people read it last year. My average rating for 2021 was 4 stars. The highest rated on Goodreads that I read was called Favorite Sons by Robin Yoakum, which is on Yoakum. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. But that is actually my top 5. So I guess we'll go with that one first. Okay. We'll go with the book that I read. I didn't read it first, but let's go with the book that everybody seems to like the most on Goodreads. It's called Favorite Sons. Now, I feel like I know why it's called that. It's basically about these neighborhood boys who basically never get into trouble except for this one day. So basically, I guess it's not really a spoiler alert because, well, I'm going to give this disclaimer at the very beginning because I know with books it's very difficult for me to, not give spoiler alerts. So I'm giving you a disclaimer right now. Spoiler alerts are ahead. Okay. That's what I wanted to say about that. So, this book, I guess I'm telling you, I really don't believe it's like a spoiler alert because of the fact that, it's basically the whole plot line of the story. So these, I think 4 or 5 boys, it's a group of young boys, okay? They're in this small industrial town in Ohio. This is where they live as kids. They're in a small industrial town in Ohio, with a bunch of factories and stuff. And the main character, is basically out with his friends as like teenagers looking for arrowheads in this guy's field, okay? In this guy's farming field or whatever, his crops or whatever. And so basically he says, don't step on the crops, but you can go looking for arrowheads down by the river or whatever, on the hill, wherever you guys want to go, you can go. And basically they do this every week. So they collect their arrowheads. Sometimes they find even cooler artifacts from basically Native Americans. And they go down to their, I guess you want to call it pawn shop, vintage shop, antique shop, whatever they do. And they go down there and they exchange their findings for money, some, pocket change every week because they're kids, right? So they go hunting one day and something goes miserably wrong. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm doing a good job at explaining this without spoilers, actually, but I might slip up here or there. That's why I did that in the beginning. Anyway, the point is, the kids are up there looking for arrowheads one day and something goes terribly wrong. Let's just say it has to do with a kid that was slow, and I don't say that to be mean. I mean, like, literally he's slow in the book. He's impaired in some ways, and he's basically the kid that all the parents say to stay away from, don't mess with him. And he's basically up there one day and something goes terribly wrong. And basically all the kids had this pact that they will not speak about what happened on the hill that day. And years later, they are adults. And basically they can't hide what happened on that hill that day. And it's in the process of being uncovered. And all of their lives are basically about to be uprooted. Who took the blame for it was actually, well, I'm not going to even say that. Wow. I almost spoiled it for you guys. But basically, the point is, it's an amazing story with political drama, with small town drama. If you love small town drama, you're going to love this book. This book was phenomenal. And let me actually explain to you something. So 4 of the books on this list were read in audiobook form. The other one I read physically. What I want to let you know about this book is it's narrated by an amazing, I'm telling you right now, this has got to be the best audiobook narrator I know of. I went and listened to all of the books that interested me from him narrating it. His name is Jeremy Arthur. You'll be able to find his work on Hoopla, Audible, basically anywhere audiobooks are found. This guy has got the best voice. I'm telling you, this guy needs to, like, if he read all of my books that I have on my shelves, I mean, guys, I would have met the goal. Like, do you understand what I mean? Like, there's some audiobook narrators that are really annoying to listen to. His voice is so amazing. I can't even begin to tell you. His voice is just so good. He needs to read like 1,000 more audiobooks. Somebody needs to hire this guy as like literally the audiobook narrator for like every single book, because I'm telling you, this guy deserves to be a billionaire the way that his voice sounds. I'm telling you guys right now, his books are so good. I can't stop listening to this guy, but unfortunately I will have to stop listening to this guy because I basically went through all of the books that I could listen to by him that interested me, and I'm just so disappointed. This guy needs to literally narrate every single book from here on out. I'm telling you right now, like, this guy is so good. Jeremy Arthur. So he narrated 2 of the books on this list. This is one of the 2. So amazing. But anyway, like I said, political drama, small town drama, 5 teenage kids, and then they grow up and basically have to deal with the past coming back to basically destroy everybody. I will also give you some trigger warnings for this book. This book deals with some heavy topics. Death. It deals with death. It deals with sexual abuse, sexual assault, as a child. So I will warn you that this book deals with some pretty heavy topics. And I'm going to give you these warnings for the other books as well, where they are needed, where the warnings are needed. This book was phenomenal. I gave it 5 stars. It was so good. Really, really amazing story. And I will also warn you that this ending is not for everybody. The ending is not for everybody, but I feel like it almost had to end that way. And yeah. Also, yeah, I'm also going to give you another warning about this book. In a way, it kind of deals with suicide in a way, so that's the other warning that I want to give you for this book. On to the next one. The other book that I read last year, oh, come on, was called You Can Never Tell by, I believe, Sarah Warburton. Sarah, right? Yes, Sarah Warburton. This book was also amazing. It was recommended to me in Hoopla, because sometimes, like, you'll read a book and then it'll, like, just pop up, like, other thrillers and stuff. This book was amazing. I could see this book being turned into a movie or a show of any kind. This book is about a museum curator. This book is about a woman and her husband, Michael. So let's read this. It says, framed for embezzle... well, I don't want to... Ooh. That's kind of difficult to read. You know, so I'm just going to have to do these my own way because there's so many spoilers. I'm really trying hard not to spoil you guys with these. I know last year I kind of did a terrible job. So this year I'm trying to do a little bit better. Because what's the point of reading a book if I tell you everything it's going to be about anyway? This book is about a woman and her husband, Michael. I think, yeah. Her name is Casey Tremaine, and her husband, Michael, moved from New Jersey to a Texas suburb to escape what had happened with her job and her falling out with one of her coworkers. And it was an absolutely amazing story. It kept me on the edge of my book. No, it kept me on the edge of my seat. This book was amazing. I also gave this book 5 stars. I think every single book on this list is a 5-star read, because it made my top 5. Although it could be wrong, but I think every one of these is 5 stars. But anyway, the point is, she is escaped. So she was, her job that she had to leave, and she had to leave everything behind from New Jersey. They moved to a suburb in Texas, right? And they kind of get buddy with the neighbors, and she kind of helps her, the next door neighbor and everything kind of helps her assimilate to this new neighborhood. She's able to meet new friends. She's able to meet new people, and her husband kind of gets along swimmingly with the next door neighbor's husband. And basically they are buddy. Some weird things happen in the house. They find some electronics in the house with the next door neighbors, and things kind of really take a downward spiral from there. She finds out that the previous owner of the house had a kind of weird, he met, or they met, I don't even know if the guy, I think it was the guy in the house before them, I don't remember, but the person that lived in the house before them, they find out that basically, he met his end really weird, or they met their end. I think it was a he. I mean, I could be wrong, but they find out that they met their end really oddly. She's got this real nice friendship going with the neighbor next door, the female neighbor next door, and her husband. And the female next door basically makes a pact with the main character of this book, and basically says, you won't leave me, alone if you have a kid or whatever, and we're basically going to be best friends forever. And I was able to figure out who did what and what happened here very easily. I thought it was very obvious the way certain characters in this book acted around the main character. I thought it was extremely obvious. It was very predictable, but nonetheless, usually thrillers are really predictable for me because most of them are written the same, with the same culprits. But also, I could totally be a private eye guy. So, I mean, in this one, I'm going to be honest, you could probably figure this one out if you're paying attention. If you're paying attention to the book, you're going to find out who this person is. So, and then towards the end of the book, what I will say is it's a race to the finish, and it's a race to basically save lives, and it's really on the edge of your seat. I could totally see this as a movie. I mean, this is such movie material, such show material. Someone could seriously make a pretty penny off of turning this into a book or a movie. I'm just telling you, because I also like, this is another thing I also like, and it was present in the other book that I mentioned earlier, the one that almost nobody read this year, less than 200 people read this year, Tribulation. I don't know what it is, but I really, really like when mixed media is brought into writing. What I mean by that is, when you're reading a physical book, sometimes pictures and documents will be added to make it, or drawings, to make it like a mixed media piece. It's kind of like when you're an artist, right? I'm a fine artist. It's kind of like when you're a fine artist and you have a canvas, or you have a piece of paper, and you do a little watercolor, and you do a little collage, and you do a little acrylic and a little ink. That's what this book is a sort of mixed media format. In other words, one chapter will be the podcast within the book, talking about this case, which is the main story. And then they have it was very dynamic, and I really loved it in audiobook form, although I'm not sure how this would read physically. That's the one thing about these podcast type books where you can incorporate the podcast into the book. I don't know how it would read physically. When you read it as an audiobook, it sounds like a podcast and like you're reading an audiobook. So that was just my experience. And I'm also forewarning you, if you're going to read this physically, you may want to read it with the audiobook because it's one of those. It's one of those. But anyway, I thought it was really cool how they incorporated the podcast into the book about, like, the podcast was about the story in the book, and I was able to follow it perfectly, and it was really riveting, very creepy, very predictable to in my opinion, but it was an amazing, well-written book, and that's why I gave it 5 stars. Let's see what else here. We have Stuck in Mystique, which was the other book that I read, that was narrated by Jeremy Arthur. Oh my gosh, when I tell you guys, here's why I like his voice. When you listen to his voice, I'm going to describe it as a more American version of Henry Cavill. Because when I was reading these, it kind of sounds a little bit similar. I could be wrong, but he just sounds real good. And these books, he just sounds amazing. And so I'm raving about this. I've been raving about this audiobook narrator for like months now, and he is just so good. He needs to narrate like everything. Point is, I read these books really only because he narrated them, and I'm so glad that I read them because they were amazing. So this is about a man named Mark. That's the main character, and there is a he's left his to his aunt's estate, his aunt Vivian's estate, to basically settle her affairs. He's going there to basically take a look at the house that she left him. It's along Lake Michigan, right? It says near the midpoint of the Upper Peninsula along Lake Michigan. Bend of shore is the town of Mystique, Michigan. Mark had never heard of Mystique before the death of his estranged aunt, but is sole beneficiary of her estate. He travels there to settle her affairs. So yes, it's on Lake Michigan. It's this super, super small town, probably only used for vacations and Airbnb and all that stuff. I'm sorry about my voice again. I've got to hydrate here. Getting over this cold, but I'm doing this for you guys because these are some amazing books, and I need to get this out because it's the new year. So, this book is about him basically wrapping up with her affairs, his dead aunt's affairs. So he goes to her house. Basically, he's left everything. Not his mother. He was left everything of his aunt's. And so he was left the house. He was left whatever, I guess, funds she had, in whatever accounts. And he goes there. He had no clue that she owned this place. He hadn't seen her, hadn't talked to her in like a decade. And he felt bad about it because she basically had nobody else. And she was kind of, like, estranged. And she wasn't really talking to many people in the family. And he really was the only one that had a connection with her. And that connection was broke about a decade ago when his mother found out, I guess, that she was writing him. And she put an end to that. Anyway, the point is, this book gets interesting when the doorbell rings. So basically, he finds out from the town, because it's such a small town, that there's only like one hotel, and his aunt was running this as an Airbnb. So basically, the doorbell rings once, and then we basically meet a whole bunch of other characters. This book gets really interesting. This again, movie material. I could totally see this as some cool. It's not even a rom-com. It's not even like, it's kind of a contemporary sweet story with an amazing ending. And throughout the way, it's a really good book. Really good book. So I really enjoyed this book. Basically, the second main character to this book is not his aunt, obviously, because she's dead. The second main character to this book is actually the first one that rings on the doorbell. Her name is Dr. Emily Davis, and she, on her way there, she basically breaks up with her, I think it was professor boyfriend, I believe, and yeah, I believe it was her professor boyfriend. And anyway, she breaks up with him, or kind of breaks up with him, and then that part gets really interesting to the story. She hits a deer. Basically, she wasn't going to stay in this town. She had no intentions. She was just on her way to the guy, and then she ended up screwing up her car by hitting into a deer. And the townspeople direct her to his house, this guy Mark's house, and that's why she's there to begin with, because there's no hotels open. Like I told you, there's only one hotel, and she was directed to this house. And so basically, you have two sides of this story. You have her side of the story and his side of the story, and it's an amazing, amazing book. It's really a sweet contemporary novel. It's not really a romance, although it looks like it would have went there a few times. And with some really interesting characters, the next door neighbor that was kind of the handyman helping the aunt out, and really, really good book. I should have mentioned this for the last book. The last book, I'm going to give a trigger warning for death. That's really the only trigger warning that I can think of, the last book. But that's, to be honest with you guys, if you hear a book as a thriller, you should be going in expecting some R-rated stuff. So, this book deals with, obviously, death and, friendships, family, and basically finding their way. I really loved, now, one thing I will say about this book, I really love the ending for this book. This book, I did not see what happened at the end coming, at all. I will say that this book completely caught me off guard at the end. Amazing, amazing story. And for the other book, You Can Never Tell, I don't know what to think about that ending. I really liked the ending. But basically, like I said, it was very predictable, that book. But this book was, I didn't see that coming at all. That came out of totally left field, and I loved it. Loved every moment of it. The other book that I read this year that made the list was, how many stars did I rate this one? Oh, wow, shocking. Okay. This one, I feel like the only reason why this one got 4 stars was because of the subject matter, and more so the fact that they thought, the writer, okay, The writer defended this man. Okay, so I'm just gonna read you guys the title for this book, the fourth one on the list. Again, these are not ranked in any particular order, guys. No particular order. This book was called John Wayne Gacy Defending a Monster. It was written by the guy that defended him in court, and the reason why I read this book was because going into it, I had like zero knowledge about this guy except for the fact that he's the male creepy clown pedophile. That was all I knew going into this. I wanted to educate myself. I'm very much into true crime. I like true crime. I read other true crime books, but this one was the best one, and that's why I put it on the list. I had to put one nonfiction on this list, so I think that's why this made the list. But anyway, and all the nonfiction really were like 4-star reads. I don't think I had any other books that were nonfiction books that were 5-star. I could be wrong, but this is actually the one that I enjoyed the most out of all of them. This book is about, it starts off with the death of a boy, and because this is true crime, I'm just going to get into it, because there's really no spoiler alerts for this book. It's just a really good nonfiction true crime novel. This story starts off with, and again, trigger warnings all over for this book. This book talks about sodomy. This book talks about pedophilia. This book talks about sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse. The trigger warnings for all over for this one. This one is totally R-rated. Only read it if you have the stomach to read something like this. But I read it because I wanted to know more, and I thought it was really interesting that the guy that defended him, who's now a judge, wrote this book. I thought that was really cool. So I read this book, and it starts off with the first, or with the killing that basically puts him behind bars. And I like that because, in a way, if they had went from beginning to end, that would have been really boring because you would have went from the beginning to the end. I like how I love how the writer wrote this in the way that you start off with the one that basically nailed him. And I really like that because it may lose the reader's attention if they don't basically skip to. I really like this method of writing true crime because I think it hooks the reader. Like for me, as soon as we jump into this scenario, I had to really pay attention because I didn't know that we were starting off like that. You know what I mean? So it keeps the reader engaged, and I really like that about this book. This book starts off with the story that basically gets him behind bars. It runs through basically this particular case, and it focuses on this one kid. It does not go into really specific detail about all of the other ones that he killed, which, again, in a way, I actually kind of prefer that. I thought this story to be the one that nailed him to be really interesting, because here's what it was. It was basically, okay, so this kid is working at, I think, some sort of retail store. I don't know if it was a grocery store. Anyway, this kid's working retail, and it's his mother's birthday. And he's there, I believe it was his mother's birthday. I'm telling you, I really do think it's his mother's birthday. But anyway, he is at the store, he's out front of the store, and he's really looking to have multiple jobs because as a young kid, he wants a nice car, and he wants a new car. And he's out there, and basically this guy, he sees Gacy coming in all the time, and he knows that he hires kids in the area, and he basically hopped in his car, and Gacy was telling him, I'll give you a job, but you'll have to come to my house first, and then it just escalates from there. Let's just say the kid never came back home, so you can infer what happened. The kid never came back home, and this family knew that that was completely unlike him to not come home and not tell his parents where he was going and everything. And the only person that fits the bill was Gacy, because he's the only one that was seen with him, talking to him about a job. People in other co-workers that work with him knew that he was going out there to talk with them. So he's the only one that fits the bill. Now, what's really interesting is, before they can even get Gacy on this kid, basically, they know 100% without a doubt that Gacy did it. But they don't have a reason to... They had probable cause, I think, to search the house once, but they didn't find anything, which I find shocking after... And you will find shocking after reading this book. But I believe they searched the house once, and then they needed more proof to basically go to the judge and be like, hey, we've got proof showing that this guy was the only guy in the area. But up until that point, what's really interesting, I think the most interesting part about this book, is not the cases themselves. It's about the psyche of Gacy. In many ways, he reminds me of Bundy, in the fact that they were so arrogant into believing that they were so smart and so witty and cunning and charming that they could basically defeat law enforcement. And this whole book is about his arrogance, and it's about his hyping himself up all the time and basically blowing smoke up of everybody's rear ends and all the time, and telling all these extravagant stories that are complete and total BS. And it was such an amazing book. Guys, this has got to be one of the best true crime novels I've read in my life. I personally, it's difficult to say if I enjoyed this more than McNamara's book last year about the Golden State Killer. I'm going to say I enjoyed this more for the very fact that this was so well written, that this is so well strung together. It shows you the, I think they even have a movie with this book. I think there was a movie that was actually done based off of the storytelling in this book. I think. I haven't watched it. I believe it's out there, though. Such an amazing book. Again, do not read this if your stomach's going to turn, but if you want to know more, it was really, really good. And I think the reason why I gave it 4 stars is because while I understand the argument that the guy that wrote this, aka his defense, was trying to make, I don't think it fit, because and here's why I don't think it fit. It's because throughout the book, he makes the effort to cover up the crime. And so if you were so out of your mind, you would have never made the effort like he did. Now, a very shitty effort at that. That's what I'll give the guy that wrote this book, his defense attorney, that's what I'll give him, is that yes, it was very bizarre, and he obviously had very deep rooted mental issues, and because of I think it was his past, again, there's no excuse, but I believe that he was assaulted himself when he was a kid, but basically, I have a real issue with anybody trying to plead insanity or trying to get the insanity plea for their client when their client is actively covering up crimes that they've committed. It's very similar to the other true crime book that I read this year, where the guy that wrote it was a quote-unquote psychologist. It was about the Aurora shooting in the theater. That book, again, I had a problem, and I had rated that book 4 stars as well. I had a problem with them basically trying to make excuses for the defendant because here's why. Because of the fact that they were actively trying to cover it up. In that book, and I'm only using it as an example, in that book, he had actively tried to booby trap his house because he knew what he did was illegal and that the cops would eventually come to his house. So, as much as he is insane, don't get me wrong, he's insane. They're both insane. But when you have them actively trying to cover up their crime, to me, the insanity plea goes out the window, because that shows that they're sane enough to realize that A, their conduct was criminal, was illegal, and number two, that they actively try to cover up their criminal conduct and their illegal conduct. So I have a huge problem with trying to plea any insanity plea, any insanity pleas for anybody that's trying to actively cover up their crimes. So that was, like I said, that was another example of my issue with the insanity plea and my issue with defense attorneys trying to use that for their clients. But that book about John Wayne Gacy, if you don't know anything about the story, if you want to know more about the inner workings of the building the case for John Wayne Gacy, pick that book up. That one was amazing, and I didn't mind the person that was narrating that book. The only one on this list that I read physically and that I really, really enjoyed, and I will be doing, guys, be on the lookout. I told you guys that I would be doing that wrap-up of I told you I'd be doing that review of 1984. And that I was waiting to see and to basically sit on it and really let the story marinate. And it's been marinating now for about a year. And what I'm going to tell you is, you guys are in for a treat. When I do the 1984 book review, it's not just going to be 1984. It's going to be The Handmaid's Tale and Brave New World combined into that review. The three classic dystopian books that everybody is talking about, everybody in the mother's talking about, everyone's comparing it to the real world, and I will be doing a thorough review of all three of those books. I feel like, to prepare myself, because I wrote really well notes in 1984. I also, let me back it up now. I had tabbed 1984 really well, and I had written in Brave New World really well. I have really good notes for Brave New World. I also have Handmaid's Tale now in my physical possession. I didn't when I read it. So, because I want this to be thorough, I'm going to reread The Handmaid's Tale, because out of the three, The Handmaid's Tale did not stick with me as well as 1984 and Brave New World, and I'm going to blame that on the fact that I didn't have a physical copy. I did have a physical copy while reading, but it was not my copy. This is what you have to understand. So I'm going to be rereading that and doing some serious tabbing, possibly note-taking. And then what I'm going to do, because I really want to be extremely thorough when this comes out. Extremely thorough. And what I'm going to do in preparation for that is I'm going to watch all of the renditions of 1984 and all of the renditions of Brave New World. And I've already watched both of the Handmaid's Tales. I've watched the movie and the show. And what we will be doing is we will be adding 1984, Brave New World, and Handmaid's Tale together in one massive classic dystopian book/movie review. And I'm also going to be reading Brave New World Revisited, because to me, I feel like in order to do this properly, I have to read that as well. So that will be coming probably in a month or two, because guys, you have to understand is I am going to be thorough when I do this. I'm not going to be beating around the bush on stuff. This is probably going to be the only review that will actually get seriously political on this channel, because I have got to do a thorough review on these books. I'm going to do it the right way. But like I said, it's going to be a thorough review. I do not want to go into this half-assed. I want to do this the right way, and I'm going to do it the right way because I know it's going to be a very well-received video if I do it properly. That's why, and I didn't tell you guys that, that's why I've been waiting on doing the 1984 review, because it's going to be more than 1984. But what I will say about this book, because I don't want to spoil it for the review really, it is a classic tale of tyranny, total and utter dystopia. There's a reason why everyone's constantly reading this. There's a reason why millions read this book every year. And I am so glad to be a part of the conversation now. And you're really doing yourself a disservice if you never read this book before. I never read it as a high school book. Many people read it as a high school book. Even if you did read it in high school, I'd actually advise you read it as an adult and without the supervision of teachers and classmates, and without the pressure of it being a high school read. This book is extremely relevant for many reasons, and it continues to basically be the words just come to life off of this page when you're reading it in the 21st century. Sadly, this is becoming reality. And it's the perfect book to read, and it's the perfect book to basically give to anybody that doesn't understand where this is going and the possible tyranny that we're about to be put under. And it is so relevant. It is so it's relevant. It's important. It is not overrated. I hear a lot of people saying that this book is overrated. No, this book is not overrated. This book is underrated. I want to see more people reading this book. And you know why I say it's underrated? I say it's underrated because I don't see that anything's changed. I say it's underrated because I don't see that anyone's actually taking heed to his words. You read this and your perspective on this whole world is going to change. It's the same thing with Animal Farm, which I put in my book review last year. It made my top 5 last year. Guys, you must read that book as well. Your perspective will change on reality once you read these 2 books, and it's a must read for everybody. Every man, woman, and child on this planet. It honestly should be required reading for every high school class. In my personal opinion, this is about as important as reading a history book, because what he's reading to you in this book, what he wrote, is coming to life. The words are flying off the pages. And guys, if we don't do something about this quickly, this will soon become a reality, and it actually is reality in many parts of the world. And that's what a lot of people in this era refuse and absolutely can't believe, is that this book is reality in many places. This book is a reality in China, guys. Whether you see it or not, see it on the news or not, this book is their reality. And this book is about to be Australia, and it is basically Canada's reality. And it basically is the reality at this point, guys. And it's about to be ours soon if we don't take heed to these warnings. And so I don't want to get too much into this book. I don't want to get too into the weeds on this. But just know that a massive book review on the 3 dystopians that everybody and their mothers is talking about will be coming out. I hope I'll get the research done and the reading done for this book before the end of this month so I can release it next month. That's the plan, because I know you guys have been waiting for my review for a while, and it's taking a while because, guys, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to be put into this review, but it'll be well worth the wait. I will promise you that. I will promise you that. You pinky promise? I promise you. So, Lord willing, that will be coming out probably February, maybe March, depending on how quickly I'm able to get the research done for this. 1984 and Brave New World do not need to be read again. What does need to be read is Brave New World Revisited, and I need to reread Handmaid's Tale. That is the goal. I also need to finish watching the show Brave New World, and I also have to watch, I think there's a movie or whatever on Brave New World, and I have to rewatch the 1984s. So, that will be coming. And you guys will seriously enjoy that when it releases. So this has been the top 5 books that I read in 2021. Hopefully, you will read at least one of these books on these lists. And if you read one of these books on this list before and enjoyed it, make sure to drop your personal opinions in the comment section. Also, make sure to like and subscribe. If you like content like this, hopefully I'll be making more of it for you guys. And hopefully I won't be slacking on this channel anymore. And hopefully, if you haven't read these, you'll read them this year, and they'll be part of your reading this year. So that's all I have to say. The next video that will be released is the top 16 books that I read in the year 2021. So, yeah, that'll be fun, and you guys will get to see that, and that review should be interesting as well. So, until next time, bye, I guess.